Hey family, welcome back to Rooted in Faith, Rising in Freedom. Today's karmic lesson is one of the hardest parts of the spiritual awakening journey, which is betrayal. And not to say that the only time you experience betrayal is during a spiritual awakening, but it takes on it's a different kind of like a meaning when it comes to that. I mean, you see things through a different lens, to say, and I'll explain here in a second, but to kind of like give you a perspective of where I'm coming from. Yesterday I went to the post office to pick up some mail, and after I got in the car and was trying to get all situated and settled in, I saw an ex-co-worker, and this co-worker did everything in their power to like just bash my name and just cause problems to where, kind of like baiting, to where I would act out of character, because then they could say, well, you see how she is acting, told you it's true, and whatever stuff like that, and but I was sitting there, and I used to be so raw with this people at this certain job. It was pretty bad, but I was able to look at this person and I felt nothing. Like, I didn't have any kind of raw emotions or ill will towards that person. I didn't even, I recalled everything that happened, but I didn't have any kind of didn't rehash stuff that I used to rehash when things were going horrible in that period of time in my life. And I was able to sit back. I even chuckled, and I wasn't chuckling or laughing at the person. I was just laughing at the fact that, out of all the days I come to this place, the times and whatever, and I would have never thought to run into this person. And I don't know if the person saw me, but when I saw that person, I was like, wow, I can't believe how far I've come in my healing. I didn't realize I was that healed, and it was just the way spirit timed it to where I could see that. But also spirit too is if they did see me, then they could see, look where she's at now. She's doing a whole lot better than what she was doing before. And whatever it is that they were telling people, I don't know whether it was telling people, but when somebody who talked down on you and try to bring you down looks at you and you're doing 3 times, 4 times, 10 times better than what you were doing, it is kind of vindication. And that's not something I purposely went out and did, but spirit did that on my behalf. And I was like, wow, that is crazy. I mean, all that just blew everything out of the water for me, as far as healing from betrayals, from word witches trying to bring you down and all that stuff like that. I'm now your faith, your beliefs, if you don't have anything else but 2 cents to rub together, it doesn't matter if you don't have God in your life, or if you don't have your spirit team, whoever you subscribe to. If you don't have faith, or if you don't have some kind of rooted belief system where you can know that you're going to be taken care of, whether you believe in the universe or divine, whatever. That was my I already knew, and I was already grounded in that, but now it's even more so. I mean, you can't tell me otherwise. Healing is possible from anything, even betrayals, even the most grotesque stuff, and I can attest to that because I've been through a lot. So with that being said, I just wanted to share that first before I went into the what I'm going to be talking about today. Is betrayal always comes before elevation. And I kid you not, that was the epitome. That was an example of the epitome of what I'm talking about today. Now, especially, and I didn't love this person. It's not like I was in love with, but these are people you worked with and you trusted, and they still betrayed you. They still talked bad about you. You gave your all, and you even went above and beyond, and they still did that to you. That hurts, you know. So it could be, and then I had a friend that called, and she was betrayed by her sister. You know, I'm not gonna name names, but you know, and that hurts. That hurts a lot. I mean, when you have people in your life that you give your all and you go above and beyond, and they still do you wrong. They still talk ish about you behind your back, and they do things to like trip you up. That it hurts, you know. So, but yeah, betrayal, especially when it comes from someone you love, or worse, your own family. This isn't just a lesson; it's a pain that breaks you open. And I want to talk about it. So we're going to come up from it from a different perspective. It's one thing to be hurt by strangers, but it's another when a blade is held by someone you trusted, someone you laughed with, someone you shared dreams with, you broke bread with. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it shakes your foundation. It leaves you questioning your worth, your judgment, and your purpose. But if you've ever felt that, you're not alone. Like I just shared an example, you know, a lot of other people, if you look around, everybody's gone through this. Everybody, your friends, your family members, they've all gone through some type of betrayal. And I want to share some examples from people that we read about. Some of y'all will know, and if you don't, well, you're about to know. There's Joseph. Remember Joseph from the Bible? You know, he was the second youngest to all the 12 in a tribe of Israel. So, and he was one of the most favored of all the 12 children by his father, and the other kids knew that. They were all the sons, you know. And he was given the coat of many colors, remember that? And then they went out, and I can't recall the details of the story, but he had given them like a dream, and from that dream they got all upset about it, because they're like, well, who are you to tell us we're going to bow down to you and that we're going to be seeking you out for help or something like that. They got their feelings hurt. And they plotted against him. His own flesh and blood betrayed him. At first, they were contemplating killing him. They were going to murder him and say that a wild beast tore him up and stuff like that. And then one of the 12 said, "No, that's our brother. We shouldn't be doing that." So they dug a big pit, threw him in there, and there was a caravan coming in from Egypt, and they sold Joseph to them as a slave. Imagine you're plotted against by your own flesh and blood. You're thrown in a pit, and then you're sold into slavery. You have no way out. And then they lied that he was mauled by a wild beast, and took back his little coat of many colors back to his dad and said, "I'm sorry to tell you the news, your son was killed by a wild beast," you know. And then all the while he's being taken back to Egypt, where he's working, and he gets to a rank where he's pretty high up, and he's working for Potiphar, which is, you know, a really high official within the ports of Egypt or whatever. And his wife, Potiphar's wife, ends up, you know, wants to be, you know, getting down with him. And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And I'm sure he was tempted. I'm sure the lady was, you know, somebody you would like to, you know. Anyhow, he said, "No, I can't do that. That would be against what my beliefs are." You know, he stood in integrity. He stood in, you know, an honor. And so she got pissed off. And as he was leaving, she grabbed a hold of him and tore a piece of his cloth. And then he ran off, and then she lied on him, said he tried to attack me and all this stuff, and Potiphar got all pissed, and then he got thrown into prison. That's the second time. I mean, it's bad enough you were betrayed by your own family, and then now you're betrayed again, and then that's an injustice. You're being honorable, and you're, trying to do the right thing, and you still get screwed. So he's stuck in prison for all these years, and then to make it really short, he comes across two guys, and he interprets their dreams. One ends up being executed, the other one ends up being exonerated and exalted in his position, just exactly how Joseph had interpreted the dream for them. And Joseph told them, well, when you get to that point, please put in a good word to the Pharaoh for me on my behalf. Well, the guy forgot all about Joseph, but then Pharaoh had a dream that needed to be interpreted, and he asked everyone, his high priestess or high priest in his within his, they had sorcerers and sorcerers back then too, so, and nobody could do that. But the person that Joseph had interpreted the dream for, he remembered that. He said, I know who can do that. Guess who he summoned? Joseph. So Joseph ended up interpreting the Pharaoh's dream, and he was taken back, and he was exonerated by everything, and he ended up, getting out of the predicament. Second example, Daniel, same thing. Daniel was very tapped in, spiritually. He was like one-on-one with God, and he prayed morning, noon, and night. Everybody knew this. And his co-workers, and I can feel Daniel's pain on this one, because that's usually where my problems come from, co-workers. Anyhow, they're all smiling in his face. Hey, Daniel, what's up? And Daniel's thinking he's got a really good, work situation and relationships with all these people. Little does he know, or probably did know, but passed it off as nothing, and then didn't really think too much of it. They all gathered together, conspired, and set this trap up. Convinced the king of that time, which was I can't recall the name of the king. It's not Nebuchadnezzar, but anyhow, that's besides the point. Well, he got the satraps, his co-workers, gathered up, conspired, and went to the king to say, hey, it's very important that that only you are to be prayed to, and no other god. And they knew what they were doing. They knew that Daniel would not comply with this ordinance or whatever that the king was going to pass. So the king agreed. He trusted these people too, and he put this decree out, sealed it with his ring and signet or whatever, and now everybody has to obey. Well, what didn't you know? Daniel's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm still gonna pray to my God morning, noon, and night. I don't care what y'all say or what you do or whatever. I'm gonna do it. And he did it. He opened up the window. He didn't care who saw, and guess who told on Daniel? Well, they got back to the king that Daniel was caught praying to his God at around noon and night or whatever, and he was summoned before the king, and the king and Daniel had a really good, honest relationship. King loved Daniel. That's another one, but King loved Daniel. And he was so distraught to know that he was about to put his friend to death. And the execution was to be dumped in the lion's den to be devoured by a bunch of lions. So they put Daniel in the lion's den, and we know how that story ends. He makes it out the next morning, and the king is pissed. He is beyond pissed. He is like, I can't believe I was duped. This was all to get Daniel out of the way, and he found out the truth. And guess who ended up in the lion's den? All the satraps and their family. Next example, Mordecai. Remember the book of Esther? There's this guy named Haman, and he thought he was the big shit and wanted everybody to bow down to him. When it came down to Mordecai will not bow down to him. See, back then the Israelites would not bow down. It's giving homage to somebody, a deity other than to the God of Israel, would be a total atrocity. It would be a backstabbing to them, because they are committed to only one God, and that is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he wouldn't budge. Just like Joseph didn't budge, Daniel didn't budge, Mordecai didn't budge. He's not going to conform to shit. So Haman got pissed. How dare you not do what I ask you to or tell you to? So Haman had it in his boots. We're going to execute him and his whole entire type of family. And not only that, we're going to execute all his kind, which is all the Israel, nation of Israel and his location. And so he went to the king, and he, conspired. And now everybody is on execution. But what Haman failed to realize was that God always has a plan. So when it came down to that, the king was married to Esther. See, this was set up beforehand. Esther was part of that kingdom. Esther was the niece of Mordecai, who didn't want to bow down to Haman. And she says, they did a 3-day fast, and they prayed about it. And then you can't just come before the king. You have to ask to be before the king, even if you're the queen. So she did that. She prepared a meal, and she invited the king and Haman. And on the second time or third time they had this meal, she goes, how come you want to execute me? And the king's like, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, you put out the decree to have us all executed, my people. And he was like, I never did that. Well, Esther spilled all the beans. She told exactly what Haman did, why he did it, and guess what happened? He was so angry he left the room, and then Haman was trying to plead with Esther, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know, and blah, blah, blah. And then she was trying to get away from Haman, and he grabbed a hold of her and tore her dress. And as that was happening, King walked back into the room, saw what was happening. He saw Haman trying to attack her and ripped her dress, and ordered exactly Haman's execution, exactly how he was going to execute all the nation of Israel, is exactly how Haman and his whole entire family was executed. Same gallows. And let's talk about the last person. I mean, there are so many stories like that of who got betrayed, but it always turns around. Jesus was betrayed by Judas. And he was denied by Peter 3 times. Oh, aren't you the disciple that was with Jesus? No, he denied him, cursed people out. I don't know this person 3 times. The rock that my church will be built on, and not even the gates of hell could come against. So he was abandoned by those closest to him. Imagine the emotional pain each of these people experienced, knowing that they loved that person that put that decree out, but they didn't realize they were doing it. You know, and then to be physically hurt or put into harm's way, I mean, it's pretty bad, you know. But that doesn't end in that story. The story doesn't end at betrayal. They were all exalted at some point in time. They were all elevated. You know, I noticed that that's a pattern with God. Is that, yeah, you'll get betrayed. Yes, this will happen to you. Yes, that will happen to you. But it doesn't end there. You know, that's not where your story ends. If you got screwed over by somebody that you loved, or somebody that you thought you can depend on, that you thought this is, you know, you were supposed to meant to have a life with, or whatever, it doesn't end there. It doesn't end with no. It sets a stage for elevation, like I just said. The pit is a preparation for a palace. The rejection is a redirection. And the weapon they use to destroy you circles back to them. And when I just gave you like 3 examples of that right there, that where it came back. Exactly how they wanted to execute them is exactly how they met their end. So the common denominator, betrayal, equals your enemies fall on the same sword they wielded for you. They fall into the same pit they dug for you. But you always come out second in command. Joseph, after that, when he interpreted the Pharaoh's dream, became second command of Egypt, was given a wife, an Egyptian wife, and they had children. And they're, you know, they became to be a huge tribe. And then Daniel, after that, became second in command. Mordecai, same thing, second in command. And where do you think Jesus is at? He's sitting to the right hand of God, second in command. So that's not all coincidence. It's divine reversal. It's just how things work. Unfortunately, it has to come through pain for whatever reason. I don't understand that. Don't ask me why this has to happen. So if whatever place you're right now, you're hurting, you're feeling casted aside, you're grieving, you're in pain, you're angry, you're frustrated. I understand, I've been there. Maybe by your own blood, maybe people you thought you can work with. It doesn't matter anymore. To me, like when I saw that guy, it was like, it was a really hard time in my life. You know, and they enjoyed my pain. They knew what I was going through, but yet they still did what they did. It was hard. But to be able to sit there and then just giggle about it, now that's a miracle to me. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm looking forward to my future. I have so many projects going on. And this past recent letdown, I knew how to navigate because of all those other times that I've gone through the same thing. And it was just, not that it makes it any easier or pleasant. I don't like, nobody wants to be in that position, but each time you just get a little bit more, I don't know, not numb, but you know how to navigate through it and you know how to heal it. It's called transmutation of pain, betrayal, abuse, whatever. You have choices. You can choose to let it overcome you, or you could choose to use it and make it into something else, make it fuel for your fire. So But you're not forgotten, you're not cursed, and you're just being positioned. This is not a pep talk. Like we're singing Kumbaya. One day, someone is going to go through the same pain you went through, and they're going to find you, and you'll be able to say, I've been there, and I promise you, there's life after this. Betrayal. Keep rooted, keep rising. You'll be able to tell your story to someone who needs to hear that. Have a good one.